Hello and welcome back, everyone. Flavor Friday on a Friday. Today we are going to be looking through the Tinto flavor number 32 for Daviet, Kumai, and Ayodhya, otherwise known as Southeast Asia, for the upcoming game with the codename Project Caesar. Now, since we're looking at 3 countries, and we're going to be looking at a couple flavor events, but a lot of this is mechanic stuff, so we'll be talking through the mechanics, what we think of the balance, this type of stuff. We actually played a little bit of Kumai, but pretty excited for this one, because this seems jam-packed full of, both advances and also like other sorts of units and like this type of stuff, buildings, all this type of juicy stuff, more so than the flavor stuff, which is, generally speaking, the type of stuff I'm excited for. Generally speaking, I've been impressed with the power level of Asia, where they have a lot going on for them as a sort of trade-off, but we are going to be jumping into it, and we have Pavia back, which is curious that he gets back on a Friday. But he is back, and he is going to be not Johan. Johan's still missing, still in the trunk somewhere. People have said that he's been posting on the forums and commenting on the forums that he's back in that sort of way. Nonsense. He's trapped in the trunk in Sitges. But let's get into it. Hello and welcome one more Friday to Tinto Flavor. Again, Pavia welcoming the Friday, driving us crazy. The happy days in which we will take a look at the flavor content of Europa Universalis 5. And, we've had Roger for some time, and Roger hasn't been, insisting that the game is Europa Universalis 5. But Pavia's back at it, and this game, this is obviously an anagram for the real title of the game. The codename was Project Caesar. This is the anagram. The real title of the game is going to be Evasions Parauvular. That is Evasions Parauvular. And I know what you're saying. What the hell does parauvular mean? It means around the uvula, which is the punching bag thing in the back of your throat. That's going to be the title of the game. Let's get into it. I'm back to Tinto flavor posts. We noticed. I hope you found the posts. We did find the posts. They were on the forums. Okay, I hope you found the posts that Roger prepared about the maps, mechanics, and content for China in the past 10 days interesting. Today we will be taking a look at the flavor content of the neighboring region as we talk about the Daviet, Kumai, and Ayodhya. Let's start without further ado. Of course, never any ado between the start and when Pavia says the ado, other than the ado that we do when we do the ado, and let's get into it. Okay, so we do have this region. Incidentally, I think Kumai is actually at an interesting spot, because, okay, if you go navally oriented, you can push down into Indonesia pretty well. We do know that we've taken a look at the terrain. The terrain here is like apocalyptic. You're never pushing control through here, other than there's a nice little pocket in here in terms of what you can... there's like a river and some flatlands, but it's like here, and here, regionally speaking, are going to be the strong places. So it's going to be Kumai and Daviet that are looking particularly good, as well as in here. I don't see Ayodhya in here. Is Ayodhya formable? I'm not 100% sure. But coming into it, we have a description of Daviet. Born from the aftermath of the civil wars of the Ngo dynasty in 968, the kingdom of Daviet has ever since struggled against the expanding sphere of influence of the Chinese empire to the north. Don't you mean the Mongol empire? Wrong ethnicity. Although parts of the Middle Kingdom, the Vietnamese people have had to defend their lands from Mongolian invaders on multiple occasions. There we go. Atop the external threats, the kingdom also faces the issue of highly decentralized state with the autonomous villages of volatile court life, where hostile actors seek to take over the Daviet throne. Autonomous villages might be the advanced. So there's one, or not advanced, there's one privilege that's just absolutely apocalyptically bad. And this might be autonomous villages, and what it does is it gives you like some positive trade-off that's like a nothing burger and minus 20 max control in rural areas. It is so bad, and Japan starts with it, and I wonder if they start with it too. Despite all these challenges, Daviet finds itself in an opportunistic situation as the kingdom of Champa finds itself surrounded by enemies and is ripe for the taking, while Kumai is facing internal decay at every front. Is it really a front if it's internal, though? I'm not sure I like that. But the ascension of the kingdom to a dominant empire of Indochina is at hand. Okay, so we have the kingdom of Daviet, which is, as you might suspect, mainly Vietnamese. We have some Zhuang in there. We have Eastern Buddhism. We have a decent chunk of not Buddhism, so I think you... you maybe have an interesting kind of start in the sense that swapping religions is probably going to be a little bit less painful if you wanted to play Hindu. I do think Hindu is relatively strong, so this is maybe an interesting kind of inflection point. But okay, you could play Buddhist as well. We are kind of taking a look through Daviate among many. Daviate starts with 2 possible government reforms to select from that are tied to the Confucian and Southeast Asia culture, respectively. We have the 3 departments, which we saw a little bit when we were taking a look at China. It's one of the departments that has 3 departments, of which there are 3, like the 3 visits and the 3 kingdoms. Everything happens in 3s. And we have the mandala system, which gives plus 10 cultures capacity. Wow, Jesus. So the culture's capacity is a modifier that's generally hard to find in Europe. But we're seeing another instance of... I had no idea that this was in here. I don't remember seeing this when we looked at Kumai. This is quite strong. This means it's going to be easy to incorporate areas. Whereas in Europe, it's a lot harder to incorporate areas or core areas, because you need to have it be both incorporated and you need to have the accepted culture. Accepted culture requires culture capacity. In Europe, you're like struggling with a total of like 3 culture capacity. Here we have a monstrous plus 10. But I suppose, I forget if it scales with pops. I know it scales to some extent with how powerful your culture is, the power of your culture relative to the other culture, but I wonder if it also scales with pops. And if it does scale with population, then the amount to integrate in the East is going to just generally be more. I can't remember if it scales that much with population. I know if you have a ton of culture power or cultural influence over the traditions of the person who's being incorporated, it takes you much less. But this is already looking pretty strong. Monthly legitimacy plus 10, allow tributary subjects, okay. Monthly progress towards decentralization. We don't like this, but it's a fine enough concession. There's a lot of sources of both centralization and decentralization, and the way you can look at it is like, as long as you're over 0.01 towards centralization, you'll be fine. And so, to the extent that you go up to like plus 0.4, that 0.39 is like resource you have to work with as it relates to fending off the decentralization. And a unique privilege, max rural control plus 0.5. Wow. That's actually fantastic. It's available in traditions. And we haven't seen too many of these just max control modifiers. I think they're just absolutely incredibly strong. Just so powerful. Because it's not even... We've talked a lot about how distance cost capital as a modifier, now renamed proximity, something or another, is really strong. But max control just... proximity requires you eventually connect back to the capital or another source of proximity. Max control just doesn't require that at all. It's just, bam, you get plus 5. And so this is going to be really good. This means you'll have base control if you put down a bailiff of 35 in a rural area, and then if it places cord, that's plus another 20. So if you have 100 satisfaction location, which is generally hard, you would just have 55 flat control, which is absolutely tremendous. That's a lot of control for a rural area. Generally, you get plus 10 off of the city, and then plus another 5 off of building a temple there, so that's like plus 15 from having something be a city. But having this in a rural area, this is quite strong. So... And this will help out a lot, specifically with regards to Daviate, because you're going to get some areas internally. They're going to be mountainous, they're going to be forests, and they're going to be impossible to connect to your power base over here in terms of control, because there's just too hard to move through a combination of forest and mountain. And so this is actually going to be very nice for you. It has some starting works of art, like the Daviate Suki, which I realize I cannot pronounce anything Vietnamese. So, and then we have the An Nam Chi Luok. I don't even know these phoneme symbols. But continuing on, we have the Tran Hung Dao Tactics. We're just going to pronounce it like it's Chinese, which is probably extra offensive, and we should just try and pronounce it as wide as possible instead. Possible frontage plus 10%. As far as I know, this is actually one of the strongest military modifiers that there exists. That just means more of your guys can get into the battle, which is a really strong force multiplier. Multiplicatively effective with additional modifiers effectively, and it's a relatively rare modifier to find. That's actually quite strong. I think that's probably stronger than 5% discipline. So already out the gate, we're seeing some pretty good power level. We didn't take a really close look at Daviet, but this is already pretty good. I know Vietnam has had a legacy of really strong generals, if I recall correctly. Something about serving as an officer during the first Mongol invasion of Daviet in 1258, and as leading commander during the second war against the Mongols in 1285, and their third attempt during 1287. During these bloody conflicts, Tran Huang Dao managed to develop tactics and repelled these horsemen consistently. Alright, well, that seems really, really strong. The only thing is, sometimes you don't have enough, supply? If you don't have enough supply to really get guys into the battles, then this is maybe not as useful, but as far as I'm concerned, this is just an absolutely tremendous modifier. And it scales really well with other modifiers you can get, because this is the more rare modifier. Like, Discipline is multiplicatively effective with having more guys, right? And whereas Discipline with itself is not as effective. If you have 100% Discipline and then you get plus 5% of this, second plus 5% is relative to your baseline not worth as much, but this is relative to your baseline in terms of possible frontage, going from 100 to 110 and getting Discipline plus 5%, it is going to stack. I think we've talked too much about modifiers here. Levy size of plus 10% from the Ngia Huan. I don't think that this is that strong, but that's because levies were really weak when we took a look at the game. And if levies become a lot better, then the strategies around that will change, but generally levies seemed kind of weak. We see Age of Renaissance here. Cultural tradition. I think generally speaking, we're looking more for influence, and so not going to be that great a modifier. Here we have cultural influence, Age of Discovery, plus 25%. Pleased to see this. It will help us to overcome in the culture wars mechanics, which does a whole bunch of things, but includes like diplomacy, integrating places faster, or culture converting stuff faster, just a whole bunch of stuff that it's going to be useful for. We see Jiaoqi Arbaquis, which is going to be infantry power and firearms output plus 10% Age of Discovery. This is fantastic. I think that, generally speaking, you really have a keen eye for anything you can have a comparative advantage in. And if you can get a lot of output bonuses, the way that it works is, so let's say the input goods are 0.8 in cost, the output goods are 1 in cost, right? And the margin's 0.20. Output is just the tail end. So it's not that we get 10% more profit off of this building now by having 10% firearms output. It's that we go from an output value of 1, actually outputting more firearms, to 1.1. And that means our margins changes from 0.2 to 0.3. So that's a 50% increase in the value of the margin of our firearms. And so this is why, generally speaking, you want to be really, really on a keen lookout for output modifiers. They're not super common for finished goods. They're fairly common for RGOs. And RGOs also operate differently because they don't have input goods. But this is, generally speaking, you're going to have an easier time overbuilding firearms and exporting them as someone with a firearms output bonus. So that's going to be quite nice. We have Age of Absolutism, Speed of Integration plus 10%. It's not nothing, but it's not all that great. I think, generally speaking, by the Age of Absolutism, integrating via cabinet action is going to get a lot better, because I believe in Age of Absolutism you get integrate area. And so at that point, getting speed of integration modifiers is probably going to be good. There's a lot of them, though, so this is not going to represent a 10% increase for you as much as it's going to be like a 3 to 6% increase or something, well, by the time you get to Age of Absolutism. Here we have Age of Revolutions, Crown Power plus 10%. Okay, this is actually kind of weak for this late in the game for a Crown Power modifier, but it's probably okay enough to research, at some point in time. Still, stellar text at the front, starting the game with the rural one, which is just kind of like bananas. Let's just start with it, plus 5%. in rural areas. The Da Viet campaign against Champa. Conflicts between the Kingdom of Da Viet and the Kingdom of Champa have been present for centuries in the Vietnamese-Cham relations. Once again, the rule of Champa shows weakness, making them ripe for the taking once and for all. All right, so we do have a little bit of flavor to kick us off the bat to go after Champa and unify the eastern portion of the Southeast Asia. The Great Kumai, looks like, is this just supposed to be the divide? No transition text? Pavia really is, without further doing this one. The Great Kumai have endured for centuries as the undisputed center of Indochina. Ever since their conversion to Theravada, Kumai has slowly lost its grasp on the undisputed rule of the region. The growing powers in both the west and in the old capital of Angkor threaten to upset the power dynamic of Indochina. Faced with the difficult upkeep of their irrigation systems and extensive temple complexes, Kumai will have to protect itself from foreign invasion to survive and reclaim its position as hegemon of Indochina. Kind of centrally located. They do have a really nice building. I hope we get to take a look at it. But we will see. They have 14 unique either advances or government reforms and 3 events. So taking a look, we do see a little bit of terrain, interesting thing. So you see, wow, we actually get to see quite well what's going on. I think they have the map rotated slightly. But we do have like a grassland area here, a grassland area here, and a lot of forests. Or it might be tropical, I cannot recall. But generally speaking, it was kind of hard to find a really good place to put the capital, but we do have this river system here. Kumai has the unique building of the Beret, which is the one we were talking about. If the capital of the country benefits by... Ooh, wait. They changed this. Okay. They made it better, from what I remember. It's not going to have multiple levels. I think it might have had multiple... No, it didn't have multiple levels before. This building is outstanding. It can only be built in a town or a city, and I think there's a requirement having to do with water, and that's what the green checkmark is. And if the capital of the company is benefits by 0.1 monthly prosperity. This is a really good modifier, especially early, and this is Age of Traditions, so you can really kick things off quite good, or quite quickly. Prosperity, it ticks up. It gets up to 100, and then once it's at 100, you get the maximum development available. It's a super, super good modifier really, really early on. And then once you hit 100 prosperity, it's really not useful as much anymore. Unless you have enemy troops march through the territory to decrease prosperity, or you have really bad satisfaction, in which case it pulls down prosperity, possibly even pulling it into the negative, which is possible, so development decreases in places with really, really low satisfaction if you don't have monthly prosperity modifiers. And getting a couple of these is generally... in my opinion, you make a few concessions to get 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 of these, in terms of choosing something that maybe doesn't look the best otherwise, but it has monthly prosperity on it. And so the fact that you have access to this on a building is actually quite nice. And then on in location, 2,000 pop capacity. Pop capacity gives you a whole bunch of good things, but or it gives you population growth is the main idea of what it gives you. There's a bunch of ways to influence population growth, but one's pop capacity. It affects it in quite a strong way. And plus 20% food production, which there's a lot of food production modifiers, and there will be a lot of modifiers on a location as it relates to food. I think development might influence it as well, but that's a pretty big food modifier, and the fact that you can just plop this down in every town and city is going to be quite nice. Now, your rural areas will produce the most food, generally speaking, but this effectively raises the ratio of places you can have as cities or towns relative to rural without running out of food, right? Especially because it's in cities and towns you can build this. For works of art, we do get the Emerald Buddha, the Preach Khan Reach, and then there's the Preach Lompeng Che. There's a Peach Garden Oath in here somewhere, or a pun in there somewhere, but I don't know where it is. We have a Ballista Elephant available in the Age of Traditions. Elephants were seen as impressive creatures and tower over any other animal we have seen. It is time to utilize these qualities to strike fear into our enemies by using these majestic animals in warfare. Elephants are also able to carry great weight, allowing us to mount war machines on them. Constructing double-stringed crossbows and equipping our elephants with them will create a tool that will allow us to dominate the battlefields better than ever before. So we do have the ballista elephant, and we can see, they have made the UI better for this. Yay! We see that they are changing the the UI so you can see what goes up and what goes down. Now, maximum strength is the number of units, and it also is the amount of manpower associated. And what we found when we played in India with the elephants was we got access to a Renaissance unit in the Age of Traditions, and I think this is the Renaissance logo. I can't quite remember, but we had access to it in the Age of Traditions, and it used Age of Traditions level troop requirements, or the amount of troops in there, but then it hit like a Renaissance unit, and so that was a little bit interesting, but it requires less manpower intensive, but I believe it's very expensive on the upkeep, requiring 0.1 elephants. But this also creates demand for elephants. If you don't have demand for elephants, they are really, really powerful trade good. They have a, base price of 10, which is one of two things with the base price of 10, which is gold and elephants. And the problem is you'll have no demand for them if you don't use them in units, as far as I could tell. And the other way you could do them is for like noble hunting grounds, in which case you turn them into ivory. So yeah, we'll be turning them into ivory later. But in the early game, you probably use a couple of these really efficient on the manpower. We see combat speed is going to be a little bit slower, and then initiative, they do get in there faster. And they have combat bonuses in the jungle. Welcome to the jungle! We got ballista elephants. Here we have hydraulic cities, Age of Renaissance, urban building cost of -5%. There's a few techs that give this, and so if you can stack a lot of it, it is going to be quite strong. Definitely a solid one. Nothing crazy, but this is pretty solid. We have Age of Discovery proximity cost -5%. Again, another very, very solid one. We're happy to stack this. Happy to see it in one of our unique advances. This is definitely going to be something we go out of our way to get. We have the Restoration of Angkor, which is going to give Cultural Tradition 10% and Monthly Prestige 0.1. It seems okay-ish. You maybe get it once you've researched a lot of other stuff. But again, we prefer influence to tradition unless something changes or has changed. We have Age of Absolutism, food production plus 20%. Expand the berets. That is a pretty big one. Again, this is going to be a lot of the food tech is like 5 or 10% in terms of what it's giving you in terms of food percentages. And so 20% is a pretty big source of it. And some events such as the Beret of Angkor. The Beret of Angkor supplies the city with crucial supply of water. During the troubles of the last decade and the succession of Emperor Trasak Pham and Che, it did not receive the attention and care it would have needed and is now slowly losing its efficiency. If we do not act now, the great water reservoir could be rendered useless in the future. No! Gotta make the repairs. And we have Ayutthaya. Interesting that he used two different spellings for Ayutthaya. I assume that this is the more correct spelling, but okay. The Thai people moved from South China to Indochina centuries ago, where they found a land crossed by trade and influences from both India and China. Drinking from both sources, as well as the presence of Hinduism and Buddhism, the Thai developed into an identity of its own, creating polities that are able to stand on equal footing to the previously domineering Mon people, who have seen their territory reduced, with many of their old kingdoms being substituted by Thai ones. The Khmer Empire also has seen itself in a recent decline as a result and has lost much of its previous influence. Only time can tell to which heights the great Thai shall rise. One of the Mon kingdoms that saw its downfall was that of Lavo, which was not only conquered by the Thai, but also split into the kingdoms of Suphanburi, and Lavo. The latter, although retaining the name from the Mon period, was under Thai rule, which was forced under this suzerainty of the Khmer Empire. The Khmer, however, waned over the recent years, and that has allowed not only the creation of an independent kingdom of Sukhothai, but also the Lavo have managed to remove its shackles. In the midst of these kingdoms, the settlement of Ayutthaya is also developing a promise of expansion. So we will have a little bit of look. We will see culturally, mostly Mon, which is interesting, with a little bit of Thai. And I assume, yeah, primary culture is Thai. I wonder how big a problem this will be for you. Kind of interesting. We don't see this too often. I think the Ottomans eventually will run into problems with it. Obviously, Yuan is primary culture Mongolian, and then all of its people are Chinese. And so that'll be a little bit interesting to play through. And we have Sukhothai, which is right here, which is, yeah, kind of the last place we talked about, where this is the area that has a lot of open land and a river, and you can build a relatively good urban center in this region, so that's going to be useful. Ayutthaya is the most unique of these countries per its starting location. It is a unique location minor that is the subject of its neighbor. Lavo, to the north, the kingdom of Sukhothai is almost at its height. As a Thai country, it has access to some unique content and advances. So which one are we talking about, Lavo or Sukhothai? Okay, well, either way, you'll eventually consolidate this entire region as either one. So we have religious melting pot. Despite them only being one religion at the start, as you expand outward in both directions, you're eventually going to pick up some people that you don't accept, right? They just started out 100% Theravada, right? Yeah, so tolerance of heretical and heathen beliefs is going to be quite nice. Each one of these gives 5% satisfaction, so that's going to be pretty valuable. Here we have war elephants, which allows the Thai elephant cavalry. Here we will see, this is also looks like Renaissance. It does not have the less maximum strength. And it looks like it's kind of straightforward as a cavalry unit. Cavalry supporting the infantry and as a personal mount for the kings, who would often engage in elephant duels with the opposing leader. Bro, that's so metal. An elephant duel sounds like something I've never seen an elephant duel in a movie before. That sounds sick. Okay. Shout out to elephant duels. Comment below if you've ever been in an elephant duel. So we do have the elephant cavalry, bonuses in the jungle, penalties in the mountains and the wetlands. This, of course, makes sense. And we do have the demand for elephants, which is going to be quite valuable. Like, you'll overbuild the elephants because they're base price 10, right? So the price will be cheaper, so this will decrease the maintenance, but it's still, it's a bit of a maintenance cost. We have the Toy Muay in the Age of Discovery, giving you 10% infantry power, strong. Income from minting, plus 10%. I was finding, just generally speaking, that the minting was not that substantive an income source relative to other stuff. But if you have a setup where you're not able to tax a lot, then minting starts to get really valuable. Like, the Byzantine flavor, they start out with a bunch of malices that prevent them from taxing, in which case you have to rely more on trade and minting. Okay, I mean, it's probably an okay one. It's just nothing crazy. A diplomatic annexation cost minus 15% in Age of Revolutions. It's kind of okay, maybe? Okay, I mean, you'll annex guys faster. Close subjects. Alright, fair enough. However, Ayutthaya will have the opportunity to grow and create a new country. Ayutthaya. Oh man, I've been mispronouncing one of them. The founding of Ayutthaya. Apologies for the pronunciation, everyone. Having brought together under his rule territories of Lavo and Ayutthaya, this count has set his sight on greater heights. Using close ties with the people of Suphanburi, he has brought forth a proposal to establish a new city in the land around Ayutthaya, from where he aims to rule the territories all of the territories as a unified country. The city and its new nation would be called Ayutthaya, giving it a distinct Thai identity separated from the old Sanskrit Ayutthaya. So I guess that's just the different spelling, maybe slightly different pronunciation. Oh man, Sanskrit. Does Theravada use Sanskrit as its language, liturgical language? Because if India does well, they use Sanskrit, which would bodes well for your ability to have a really powerful liturgical language. Both India and China actually have a ton of potential if they get the ball rolling a little bit. Just because they have so many people. We have the county of Ayutthaya, where we will have... Okay, this is the unified area. Not yet going into the north, but this is going to be your power base here. You will be able to... Kumai's over here to the right, and you'll be able to have a nice little access to Indonesia as well, if you go naval-oriented, which I think you will. Because going land-oriented, just to the north is a bunch of mountains and forests, so I don't think that's going to be where you want the way you want to play. With any new step taken, always take the first step with both feet at once. This is the safest way to test new things. New unique content will pop up, making for a progression from the small and weak Ayutthaya. We will get some reforms from this gentleman. Although our administration is certainly successful, the Count has noticed some gaps in it and has proposed various reforms in order to better streamline the government of the state. While many of these proposals make sense, make great sense even, they will be at the cost of upsetting, at least temporarily, the ways in which the wheels of government or our government work. And there are many who see these changes with skepticism. Do they see it with skepticism? Or do they skeptically see it? Who knows? But we will see a government reform called Chat USA Dom. Chatsuda Dom. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but it does come out that way. Crown power plus 10%, efficiency of cabinet plus 10%. Solid. Pretty solid. We've obviously seen some really, really bananas reforms, but this is this is definitely slottable, especially in the early game. Crown power is quite at a premium early on. You haven't gotten access to a lot of text from it, and you will be under 25% crown power, which is where the pain arrives, because you haven't developed enough infrastructure to have enough control to get rid of the control malices. So the negative crown power just gives you a huge malice to tax efficiency and production efficiency. And it's worse than just getting less income, because your expenses scale off your tax base, I believe, and do not take into account your actual income. And so a tax efficiency malice is going to be quite bad. So overcoming that in the early game, slotting in a bunch of crown power reforms is valuable. And there's only 2 in the early game for most. And you will get access to a 3rd government reform slot from Age of Renaissance, or the Renaissance tree. And so this can be your 3rd crown power if you want to go that route. To the potentially powerful regional hegemon Siam. We are Siamese, if you please. Siam might also be created by any other Thai country, such as Sukhothai, and much more. Only one much. Roger was gratuitous in his muches. Pavia, always reserved. But that's all for today. Next week we will have 2 posts. Wednesday, Tinto talks about the Black Death situation. I feel like we had a Tinto talk about Black Death already. Long ago. Maybe that was just disease in general, and this one's about the Black Death specifically. Well, I'm for it. I'm excited. We've played through the Black Death a bunch of times, and so if we have the chance to learn how to resist it a little bit better, that'd be nice. And Tinto Flavour about the Mamluks. The Mamluks have a really, really strong modifier, so that's going to be exciting. We will be seeing that modifier next Friday. They have one of the best, I think, estate privileges in the game, and so we'll be taking a look at that. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, do the YouTube algorithm thing, hit the notification bell. Wait, did he not plug? Is he off his game? Oh no, yeah, you can wishlist it. Our brain's starting to filter it out because we see it at the end of every single one. You can, of course, wishlist Europa Universalis 5 now. But, already asked you about the YouTube algorithm thing, but since it is Flavor Friday, what's the most flavorful thing that you had this week? And have a Flavor Friday on a Friday.